we're on. Now,
That's so loud.
welcome to everybody up and down the country. We're going to try and focus our minds on the difference between independence and loneliness and isolation. This is just to get you into a sort of setting the scene sort of thing. Right, can you all see this?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. This is the photo I chose to put, the image I chose to put on our flyer to attract people's notice and attention. And what I saw in this is an almost invisible older person sitting alone on a bench in danger of
Melting away.
yes, and then go and having gone without anybody noticing. And that's how I felt when I looked at that. And that's what I wanted people to think about, okay? And then I went on to the second image, and it was an elderly lady saying clearly, being a graffiti artist, saying clearly, old lives matter, so we should not allow people to fade away and melt away into non-existence. And then here's another couple of things which I wanted just to think about. We have been, since we were kids, when are the times, and that child is still within us, and all those years that we've been through adulthood into old age, they're all within us. When are the times that we have felt lonely as a child, or at work, or in a marriage, or whenever? When are the times that we have felt lonely? And just to show even balance, when are the times that we felt lonely in our lives? So now we find ourselves as AWOCs, and this is the photo image I used for when we were doing No Kidding. And there is well, it's Anne, actually, let's admit it. Here is Anne staring through her window, waiting for somebody to come down the drive or come knocking at the door and have a coffee. And having a cup of coffee to cheer herself up while she's at it.
Not whiskey.
Not whiskey, yes, she was, you know, and yes. Okay, so there is the thoughts for the day that I was. Okay, and so there we come back again. So that was my thoughts for the day to sort of set the scene. And then Anne is, first of all, we're going to do introductions. So brief introductions. I'll go to left to right on my screen. So David, you're up first.
Okay, then. Good afternoon. My name is David. I've been a member of York AWOC for the last three years. I'm not married and have no children. Both my parents are dead. I would say that I'm in a slightly better place now than I was, say, 10 years or so ago. But it has left its mark on me.
Okay, Anne, you're next because you're next on the screen.
I am an AWOC in England. I've been here 27 years from Vancouver. But in Vancouver, I have 3 children and 5 grandchildren. but I'm happy here, and I'm happy to be an AWOC here.
I'm next, and I've chosen not to have children, and so I've adventured around the world, in New Zealand in the 70s and Canada in the 80s and 90s, but I saw the writing on the wall. I have nobody in the second younger than me in the children. I have no children to back me up, so that I am going to be a person aging without children. And where is the support if something goes wrong? I'm fine at the moment, but thinking ahead, where is my support going to come from? Okay, Monica.
I've been a member of York AWOC since 2015. We married late, so I haven't got any children. And I also wonder where my support is going to come from in my old age, because all my family live abroad. Thank you.
That's it. Rose.
Well, I'm here as an intruder because in Amsterdam, I share a flat with my son, and my daughter lives about 10 minutes bike ride away. I do spend half of my time in York, so I'm here, well, as a friend of Sue and Anne's, but not as a member of AWOC, but maybe to give a perspective from the other, from another situation. In York, of course, I do have the North Sea between myself and my daughter, son, and granddaughter.
So you're a York AWOC.
Well,
When in AWOC, do as the AWOCs do. I know. When in York, do as the AWOCs.
I'm here as an observer, and also to give another perspective.
Okay. Lovely. Rodney.
Hello, yes, my name is Rodney. I'm 86 years old. In fact, I do have children, but when my then wife and I split up, they went with her and became part of a new family. It was all perfectly amicable and all that sort of thing, but I chose to spend less and less time with them. And effectively, that connection is long since broken. I think that's all.
Right. Okay, so we're getting very different situations and circumstances, which is really what it's all about. Okay, Linda.
Hi, this is my first contact. I've just seen just saw a poster online, and so I'm here, completely new to the idea of AWOC. I have a kind of broad international family, but I'm the youngest, and my sisters have died. My parents, I've got no family in England at all. I have one son. I'm married and divorced and single. My son, I married a Greek, so my son is Anglo-Greek. He lives in the States with his wife, who's Japanese. So if they go home, they tend to go to Japan. So I have one grandson who is 12, and I haven't seen him since he's 2. I live in a very small village here in Kent, East Kent, and I failed 9 driving tests. I can't drive, and they've cut off the bus route. So I'm very isolated here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because I lived in the Republic of Ireland until 5-6 years ago, I came back 6 years ago, coming home. I had no family left, no friends left here, and I thought it would be easy, or I thought it would be possible to kind of establish close friendships here, but it's not been at all. I suppose I'm comparing it to Greeks and Irish. So, and Southeast England is, although I was brought up in Surrey, as you can tell, but I'm, very isolated here. So that's my situation.
So I'm glad you found AWOC. Good.
Yeah.
Yes, so am I.
Okay, Anne.
Hello, I live in York, and I do have a daughter, but she doesn't live here. She lives down in London. I don't get to see her very often. Yes, it's a very interesting time. I mean, when I go out, I make myself go out. Sometimes my social interaction with people is just buying a coffee from somebody or chatting to people that I've got to know. It's difficult at times coming home to an empty house that's cold. I do have a supportive circle of a few friends, and the bad days are when nobody's in, nobody answers the phone. That's the bad days. And I do various courses. I've done courses online. I spend a lot of time in the library. Yes, I've had so I'm looking at the future. So I'm having a downstairs toilet shower put in, with the thoughts that I could turn my lounge into a bedroom. With the downstairs toilet shower, I'll be able to live downstairs. So that's, yeah. So I'm looking at my future. My parents have obviously died. My brother died from asbestosis. He never really introduced his children to me. He had 3 daughters, and they fell out over various things. So there's 2 of them that live near Shaftesbury, and I'm in contact with one of them. My daughter doesn't know them at all. We only met at my brother's funeral. So I mean, that's sad, that he kept us, that part of the family apart. And I've got relatives, but they're far flung and they're elderly. So yes, I do miss my daughter. She rings me up when she's got a problem. I've asked her to, please, can you ring me when you don't have a problem and something good is happening, please?
Yeah.
And I also belong to the Silver Tent, which is very good. It's for women over the age of 50. At the moment, they've got a celebration going on down in Tavistock. So I saw some pictures of them in the gin bar yesterday. Yes, so I'm going hopefully to Knaresborough, because there's a Silver Tent meeting in Knaresborough next week or the week after. So it's keeping myself interested in things going on outside. Yeah, so I suppose, the COVID for me wasn't that much of a challenge. I actually quite enjoyed it because I knew everybody else was in the same boat. Yeah, anyway, that's enough of me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, okay, Penny.
Hello, I'm Penny from East Kent. I'm AWOC. I have one brother who's also AWOC. Our mother was an only child. Our father was the youngest of 3. He was a late mistake, is the theory. Other theories are available. But he was 14 years younger than his brother and 19 years younger than his sister, both of whom have one child. One of those children is also AWOC and 9 years older than me. The other one has children and grandchildren, and for all I know, great-grandchildren, but I've never met the children or the grandchildren. And the last time I met the cousin and his wife was at my father's funeral, which is nearly 30 years ago. As Sue says, I have no next generation, either directly or in practical terms, in my family. And so I'm concerned that, the system isn't suitable for me, and I want it to change. A system widely defined. I was a carer for my mother for her last 10 years or so before she died. And I think that's one thing that's interesting about remote daughters, in that I think my mother would kind of assume, would have taken the view that she was aging without children up to a certain point, at which point I went, sod it, okay. I was taken aside by a couple of her friends in her sheltered housing block, who said to me, basically, she's your problem, not ours. So I thought, charming. But but anyway, I was there. I think the interesting thing about my mother is that she invested hugely in relationships in her own generation, and among friends. She had a number of very close friends, and she paid it forward in terms of looking after people who were older than her. But she was the last one standing, and everybody else, sort of in her sheltered housing block, sort of melted away particularly as she got dementia, and wasn't able to hold up her end of the relationship.
Yeah.
And my mother died with dementia, my grandmother died with dementia, my great-grandmother died with an element of dementia. And so I'm kind of working on the basis that it's a probability for me, without getting depressed about that now.
No, you look ahead and think, right, now, if that's coming down the line, how can I prepare for it? We've done
Exactly.
a show on dementia because we wanted to get a grip. We did a whole show on dementia and me because we wanted to get a grip,
And one of the things that the national webinar last week, I was involved with preparing for one of the breakout sessions, which was about a really interesting project that academics at Sheffield Hallam University have been doing around the situation of people living alone with dementia without access to a family advocate, and then also the degree to which social services departments are or aren't providing adequate support for people in that situation. I hadn't realised that research was going on until I joined the planning session for the breakout.
Yeah.
And I think it's very interesting and potentially likely to come up with quite a lot of useful material for sort of waving in front of one's local integrated care partnership and so on.
We'll spread the word.
Yeah.
Okay, Yvonne in Dorset.
Hi everyone. I'm sorry you can't see my camera. It's not letting me start the video for some reason. That wasn't intentional. Anyway, I live in rural North Dorset. I live with my husband and my pets, but I don't have any immediate family, close family or close friends nearby. I'm estranged from my sister who lives up in Lincolnshire. My mother lives abroad. My closest friend lives in Wales. She's older than me. And we are caring for my father-in-law who lives in London, which is 2.5 hours away from us. And basically we can see what it's like if he didn't have his son to come over, which is only every 2 weeks, and he's in his 90s. But if he didn't have his son to come over, he would be on his own. He can't go out now, but he's still pretty much with it. So he's still living on his own. And it just, got me thinking about the future. We haven't got any close people nearby, and we're in a rural part of the country, which probably means that we're going to move to a bigger town near our hospital. Because what will happen when we can't drive? There's hardly any buses here. I've lived here 20 years, but it's probably time to move on for that reason. That's it. Thank you.
It's this isolation thing, isn't it? If you're an AWOC and then you're living in an isolated rural community, or even if you're living in the middle of a city, you can feel isolated. Okay, Charlotte.
She's muted. Oh, there she is.
Yes, hello. Yes, I was very interested in you know, everything you were saying, because sometimes I felt really snap. For instance, Linda, I'm Charlotte, I have no children, and my nearest relatives are far away in Vancouver, like Anne's. But Linda, for instance, was saying the difficulty to make friends in a new place, etc. Now, I've been there. I left to live in Cyprus for a few years and came back here to York 12 years ago. And, you know, away a few years, but a few years can be a long time for old friends who sort of go away, disappear. You don't have that much contact. And I found, you know, like you, it is not easy to make friends, and all you can do is go to all sorts of places where you can. I mean, I go to the U3A quite a lot. I go to a lot of, you know, the classes and so on. And you meet all sorts of people, and most of the time you say, well, you know, what have I got in common, really, apart from an interest in this and that? And I'm afraid it's a sort of a try and error thing, because if you get discouraged, and for some years I didn't really make friends, I made acquaintances, but it's only by going to all sorts of places and doing all sorts of things that you'll be able to meet people. And as I did on a few occasions, we sort of clicked. And if you look around yourself, I mean, you realize you can't expect to click with a lot of people during your lifetime. It just isn't that easy, but you will click with people, you know, if you take the chance and go out and do something and meet people. But you won't do it if you stay home. That's what I found. And like Penny, you know, I'm also worried about dementia, for instance. That's very, very, it's a very hard prospect, of course. And something I think a lot of us are frightened of. I've seen dementia at close quarters, and it is really a frightening prospect. But I really think I can't live my life in fear. But I suppose, you know, like you have a close family member who has very badly affected by dementia, and you can't help but wonder, you know, have I got some of the same characteristics? But I think just go on living and enjoy it is all I can say. There's all sorts of things. So a lot of stuff really clicked with me here. I find AWOC is very good, because actually you meet a bunch of people you have something in common with, and something which is very important. You know, that's a massive part of your life. Being childless, as in you have nobody much younger and close to you who can help you, where are they, etc. And I'm trying to set up some ways of getting that help. I have a niece who is very far away in Vancouver, but I'm trying to set up something whereby she could help me from long distance. If you have anybody, a relative or a friend, you know, could help you, then that's worth exploring. But like somebody else, was it Yuan who talked about this, and Smith, about friends dying? You know, we're getting older, and our friends die, our friends leave, and there's nothing we can do about it. And of course, it gets harder to meet new people because your contemporaries, but the laws of nature are just vanishing as well. I know it's not very comforting, but I think really you've got to do the best you can for yourself, because there's only you ultimately, and that is true whether you have children or not. There's only you that can look after yourself. So that's all I've got to say for now.
Thank you, Charlotte. And on to Julie.
I'm an AWOC because I live on my own. I'm not interested in having children, never have been. Both my parents are not alive anymore. and I live in York. I've got 2 nieces, and they live around half a mile away. My sister does as well. I don't know what else to say about it.
That's good. That's fine. So we've got a mixture of people's circumstances being AWOC. What I'd like to do now is just to, I don't want to go into your full story of how times you felt lonely or what it means to you, just as a matter of human definition of loneliness. What are we talking about?
Well, to me, aloneness obviously is different from being lonely. You know, if you are alone, you can still be happy, but you can also be lonely.
So what is this lonely?
What is this lonely?
Yeah,
Okay.
what is it?
I think being lonely is when you feel that there's nobody that you can share with, share your perhaps happiness, share your worries, share your grief, whatever. That's it, because I think it's human beings in general. We're social animals, and sharing is probably what comes deep down most naturally to us.
So an empty house.
Not necessarily, just not. You can be lonely in a crowd. If there's,
Okay,
if you
so it's not
can't
the
have,
empty, yes,
if
okay.
you're in a crowd and you're sort of just having superficial conversations, perhaps not really being yourself, not true to yourself, that I'm more lonely then.
I was just going to say that for me, there is a big difference between loneliness and solitude. I'm not a particularly sociable person. I'm happy with my own company a lot of the time. I like to write, I do meditation, I don't seek company all the time. So I think that the difference is if you're contented, then it's solitude. But if you're not contented, then that's when you feel it's loneliness. At least that's how it seems to me. And you can be, you know, it could be exactly the same situation. And one day I'll feel lonely in it, and the next day I won't. I'll be quite contented. I don't know if that makes sense to other people.
Yes, yes, it does. It does. Because that's why I'm trying to get at the definition.
That's
Yeah. And I actually find myself never lonely per se, because I'm so busy doing things that I haven't got time to be lonely. I was just going to say that there are times when you can be sent to Coventry. Do you all understand the meaning of being sent to Coventry?
Yes.
When people will not speak to you because they've got something against what you've done or what you've said, and then they influence all their friends, and then you are sent to Coventry and they won't speak to you, and that is a huge hurt. That's a huge hurt. And so to try and say, oh, it's water off a duck's back, sometimes doesn't work at all. But anyway, so that's another definition of loneliness when you're put there. Charlotte.
Yes, I agree with you, Sue. Actually, being cut off in this way would be very painful. And I think, like you, I'm not on social media because I don't like them. But I think actually it happens to quite a lot of people, young people particularly, on social media. You know, they're suddenly excluded. And that's where social media are pernicious. For me, loneliness is a sense of alienation from my surroundings, whether things or people. just not feeling at one with what is around me. That is what loneliness is. And of course, to a certain extent, if I never had anything to share a thought with or an idea with, you know, I would again feel very lonely, but I would be at odds. If one is alienated, in a sense, you're also at odds with yourself. So that makes life more difficult. Like Linda, I understand solitude. I mean, I do like being on my own. I don't necessarily rush around doing things. I'm not the sort of a hard-working social body that you are, Sue. But you know, we're all different. But definitely, loneliness, I think. I don't know. It is perhaps a curse, in a way, a greater curse when you're older, when you're AWOC. Partly because of what we've all said, lots of your friends, your family have died because you're older yourself. But it can hit at any time, really. You know, I felt lonely at times when I was a child. So it's not necessarily being old. In a way, actually, if you are old, I think you might be almost less likely to be lonely, because you have learned a lot during your life. You've had experience of life. You know more how to cope, even if life is more difficult physically, mentally, emotionally. You sort of know a lot more about yourself, about the world, and how to cope generally. So it's not all bad aging. That's all I got to say.
Good. Okay, David.
But it also depends on your mood, on your mood as well. I mean, yes, you can be solitary, but I mean, it can also be a part of loneliness as well. Again, not only just not sharing anything with anyone, but not having anyone to talk to as well.
Yeah.
That's very true, David.
Yeah.
Yvonne has got a hand up.
It was just to say that I think it's about not having that deeper connection and not having that support, that unconditional support and caring from other people, that can contribute to loneliness.
Is that why people have pets? Because it's that unconditional love and companionship.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There.
Yeah, I'll say.
Filling the house with that kind of energy. Okay, David, did you finish? David?
Just one other thing I thought of, and if you're not getting any help or support from people, then that can heighten the loneliness as well, and also be very hurtful. I've only just thought about that.
Yes.
And I just say it can also depend, of course, on the weather or on how you feel physically. I mean, at the moment, I'm a little bit sick, so I'm having to cancel all sorts of meetings with friends. Fortunately, the weather's okay, but if it's cold and raining, then you live alone, then yeah, you're stuck in your house probably. And that can make you feel lonely. Whereas if it's beautiful sunny weather and you feel fit, you can go out and talk to the birds and so on. Or dogs.
Admires
I do.
Yes, that's right. Talk to the dogs. Yes. So what's going on around you in your life or in the weather or in the world? If you're listening to the news and you get bombarded with negativity, you have to, in order to escape from feeling, oh, goodness me, the world is going to pot in a handbasket or something or other. So we're going to move on to think to particular situations when we felt lonely and what we've done about it. But first of all, Anne is going to read out something that was sent in to be read out anonymously at our workshop today, and it encapsulates everything that I'm trying to get to share. Okay.
This was sent in by an AWOC in York. What's it like to be lonely, and when does independence become isolation? To a certain extent, as an only child, who was quite nervous and always the quiet one, I was often lonely, but I had a large extended family and was happy at school and most of the time at work. I think there's a stage when you enjoy independence, having a place of your own, etc., but I found it very difficult after retiring and getting older. Many of your family and close friends are no longer there, and other family and friends live at a distance. You miss coming home and having someone to tell about your day and just talk to or watch TV with. Just having someone else in the house in the morning and evening, or someone to look after who needs you. Someone to go out with or go on holiday with. You may have acquaintances who keep in touch on social media, but no one near who knows you well, even someone to tell you off. The knock-on effect of this can make you very anxious. Small problems which could easily have been resolved become huge. You also have the problem of what you're going to do if you have to have an operation and there's no one to look after you. It is worse if you have a mental or physical impairment. So what do you do to cope? I was advised when I retired to do some voluntary work and to do a class, which I did. Then to make out a plan and every day do something routine, something necessary, and something enjoyable. Joining the AWOCs has been very helpful as they understand the problems of being without close family. I try to be positive and not to be too self-centered. Being part of a community at my parish church is also very helpful. Sometimes just having a cup of tea and a chat can make so much difference. So what are we asking the authorities for? Well, it would be helpful if they could reassure people without close family that if they had to go into hospital, there would be some respite care available afterwards. Possibly reinstating the annual routine review and chat with the nurse at the surgery, which of course has stopped since the pandemic. Continuing with an increasing community drop-in centers and making sure everyone who needs help knows where to go for advice. Possibly more communal meals. That they remember the importance of personal contact for those living alone. Phones, computers, and TV, etc., are good, but they don't replace human contact. Well, I've rambled on enough. I hope this is helpful. Best wishes and hope all goes well on Saturday.
So bearing in mind that that is one person's contribution to what we're looking at today, are there any thoughts arising out of that?
I think it's practically summed up the whole session altogether. What is loneliness, how it affects us, what we do, and what can be done about it.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's what you said you were aiming for in this session.
Yeah. Yeah. So let us now go into then our own personal experiences of loneliness, and because we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 people here, can we limit it to about 2 minutes each at most? When have you been lonely and how have you coped? That's the question. When have you been lonely and how have you been coped? How do you cope? How have you coped? Okay. If you put your hand up, then we can have a little queue of people and we can go one at a time. Who'd like to kick off?
Well, I'll go first.
Okay.
I mean, I've suffered from loneliness all my life, but more so after my mother died in 2012. I was working at Tesco's at the time, and they showed little or no sympathy for my situation. In fact, they were forever trying to push me out. It was around about the time that I was starting to paint and draw again, and one way of sort of coping with my loneliness was sort of to do little pen sketches. This one is dating from 2015 and was illustrating a remark of Abraham Lincoln's: "To ease another's heartache is to forget one's own." And then this one, which was done in 2016, called "A Hard and Lonely Place," called a dark, hard, and lonely place.
Yes.
Now, this one I actually did after I was recovering from a chest infection in 2016 that knocked me out for 2 months. This was on one of my first excursions into town after my illness, and how I felt with the crowd standing out, just struggling to adapt to life again, whilst people were in a hurry, making noise, rushing around me. That was in 2016. Now, in 2017, I moved house, was able to get some money from the sale. And since then, I have been taking part in work for organisations such as York Mind, Converge, and Aging Without Children. And I've also been working as a minibus driver for Age UK, as well as my usual job as a delivery driver for Domino's Pizzas. So I would say I'm in a better place now, but this is a picture dating from the beginning of 2018. Have I forgotten how I felt? And is that my time up?
Those are very, very evocative, David. Very clear.
Well, I mean, there are lots of instances of being alone in the past, but that's the more recent examples, like which I thought would be more appropriate.
This is a little booklet that I picked up a while ago from an organisation called Camarados that runs public living rooms. I.e., they put a couple of sofas in the middle of the street and serve people tea and coffees. And they have it's a little community creating thing. And they have this set of principles that they operate by. And I really like two of them. One is, we don't try to fix other people, just be alongside them, open bracket, and lots of tea. But the other one is the last one, which sort of struck me earlier as relevant to this conversation, which is, if someone is struggling, try asking them to help you.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And one thing that kind of drives me mad about, certain bits of the sort of aging support organization network is that they're all about doing things for people rather than providing people with opportunities to contribute.
Yeah.
And I do think the basic principle is, if you're feeling miserable, that one of the useful things you can do is find a way to help other people.
Yes.
Without being maudlin about it.
And that's like volunteering too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You get out of yourself and you listen to other people and associate with others. That's a huge thing.
And you realize that, so many of the things you experience, other people experience too, whatever their circumstances.
Yeah.
Although there are also things that are very, very specific to us and our situation.
Yeah.
So Penny, to bring it back to the personal, is this times that can you bring it back to the personal?
I suppose the times that I have felt loneliest have been when I've been with other people I felt I wasn't or couldn't communicate with.
Uh-huh.
So I was certainly, you know, relatively lonely as a child growing up. I would count the months till I could leave home. I had this fantasy that, of course, everything would be wonderful once I'd left home, but it wasn't. And I suppose the other time where, you know, in the past I have been particularly lonely is when I've been, you know, in a relationship where we'd stopped communicating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's very good, Penny. Thank you.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, Rose is clapping.
Next.
Yeah, I just wanted to, well, Penny's said it well already, but certainly I think you're often more lonely with people who because personally, within the space of a couple of years, when I was late teens, early 20s, I lost 3 people who loved me unconditionally. And then I felt that I had to find substitutes, but I tried too hard. So I wasn't being myself. And that's when I felt lonely. So I'm not saying that I now always am true to myself. You know, I sometimes do try to please other people, but really there's an illusion that if you've got people around your family, that you're not going to feel lonely. Because even if you've got children, and I'm not talking about my children, but sometimes people have children who not at all supportive, and that's a horrible feeling. So it depends on your relationship with the other people. Can you really communicate? And yeah, that's partly up to you, of course. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Okay.
Want me to say any more?
Linda.
I think so much depends on your current circumstances. I can look at the past, and I can say, yes, I was isolated as a child with much older siblings, you know, before the war, and I was after the war, that sort of thing. But now, I mean, I had a career working as a carer, you know, in a caring profession, shall we say. I was a therapist. I don't want to do that anymore. So though I hear you saying go out and meet people and offer to do things and volunteer, I had a 38-year career doing that. Don't want to do it anymore. It's exhausting, and I don't drive, and I can't get to places easily, and to me it's work. I've coped by painting, drawing. I saw what Anne was saying, writing, and I have a dog. Dog really helps. In fact, he's walked into the room on cue. I think in the past, when the situations have got difficult, I've run away. I've been on a lot of aeroplanes in my life. Go to another situation, start again, give another group of people a chance, go out and meet more people. But when you really think about it, I meet people all the time in the village. Everyone will talk to you about the dog and the weather. That's not, you know, that's not being friends. And how have I coped? I pay people to do things. I'm not well physically. And so I pay. I have to. I use my pay. I pay people. I pay people to do the gardening. I pay people to take me to doctor's appointments. I pay people to do everything. That's how I cope. So I haven't got a package from anyone else. I've put together a pay package for myself, you know, and I pay for it. But in the past, it's also made me depressed. I've been very depressed. And then I nearly died with a heart attack, and suddenly, and then you come through that, and I still have a heart condition, and I've been offered an injection that costs £3,000 per injection, but it will keep me alive. I'm not depressed anymore. And I know all of a sudden life is wonderful. Every day and every, loneliness is nothing because solitude is great. I can still do the things that I want to do. I can, a lot of the things that I want to do. So everything depends on your current situation. And it can change just like that.
Yeah. Yes. So suddenly life becomes worth living.
Absolutely. When you realise, I hear I know it's difficult and people facing dementia and long-term illness and everything. Like every member of my family has died like that with my heart attack at the age that I am now. So I'm like, please give me that. I don't, I do understand it, but it isn't the problem that's going to face me. My problem is stay here till next month, and start the proper medical treatment. And on top of all that, I look all pink and healthy, and you never get any sympathy when you look pink and healthy.
Yeah.
No.
That's good. Very good.
Anyway.
Right. Thank you, Linda. That really does remind you, doesn't it, that it's if you're suddenly faced with life being taken away from you, it all sort of goes into another perspective entirely. Yeah. It goes into another perspective entirely. Charlotte, yes.
How to cope with that loneliness. Again, it's a very individual thing. And again, I've learned a bit more as I got older. And I think because I've done a lot of things in my life and I've tried to learn many things, I mean, many of them have fallen by the wayside. I think I have learned ways to cope, basically. I've got more experience and I can cope better when I've got a feeling of a terrible loneliness and isolation. It's something I've learned to cope with much better, which is not much help really to anybody. And I do agree with Linda. I would adore to have a dog. I've had a dog before, and a pet brings a huge dimension to one's life. But this is something that's actually harder as an AWOC, I find, because I'd have to stay home a lot of the time. You have nobody to say, oh, well, they'll keep the dog for today if I want to go away. They'll keep the dog when I'm going on holiday, or the cat, or whatever.
You pay people.
Yeah. It's much harder anyway. And I've always felt a sense of huge responsibility towards my pets, and I've never left them on their own very much. So again, I'm really interested in what everybody had to say. So thank you very much.
Okay, David.
Just to follow up on what Charlotte has said. I know after my mother died, people were asking me, "Are you going to get yourself a pet?" And I was saying no, because as Charlotte says, it's too much of a responsibility. And after caring for my mother in the last few years of her life, I just did not want that. I did not want that sense of responsibility anymore, because I just find it difficult looking after myself, let alone looking after someone else.
Anne.
Well, I did feel very lonely in my marriage. We didn't know each other. Don't worry, I won't go on. But he said some things that were very hurtful to me many times, and my kids were in the middle of it. I felt isolated. And my daughter said, "Mom, I felt your pain so much, but I didn't know what to do." But I did do something, and I don't know to this day how I managed. I left the family home, moved into an apartment, and because I knew he wasn't going to leave. But I can honestly say that now, today, his wife and his wife and he and I have a really good relationship when I go to Vancouver. We both agreed it wasn't working, but I still can't believe that I had the nerve to move out of the family home. That was a huge thing for me, and I still can't believe I did it. But I had to do something, and I did it.
So Related to this relationship, just while we're at it, I'm now going to sing you a song. Anne is covering her ears right. Okay, so Anne and I have been together since known you since 1986, when I met Anne in Canada. And because you've heard that she has got 3 children and 5 grandchildren in Vancouver, but now here she is living in the middle of York. But she used to go once or twice a year to Vancouver, leaving me by myself for 3 weeks. And when I see Notting Hill, you know, the Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts film, ain't no sunshine when she's gone, it's not warm when she's away, ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and she's always gone too long, every time she goes away. Wonder this time where she's gone, wonder if she's gonna stay. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, and this house just ain't no home every time she goes away. It wasn't a blooming laughing matter, because I suddenly found myself alone and I couldn't concentrate on all the things that I had to be doing, because I had to do things like go shopping, cook my food, cook my meat. The number of pans I have burnt when Anne has been away is uncountable. Doing the laundry, keeping an eye on the garden, doing this and that and the other. Anne is our home keeper. So when she isn't in our home, and what I felt was lonely, talking to myself, trying to do things and just wondering what she was up to. Looking forward to, she rang every 2 days, so I had to look forward to when she was going to ring me again, and making profuse notes so that I could keep on talking. And I actually feel tearful now, thinking of loneliness. Loneliness is a tearful feeling. Loneliness can be a tearful feeling, and you have to, in order to cope with that, I had to fall back on philosophy, my philosophy of life, wondering where she is now and if she's going to stay there. Is she going to stay in Vancouver? That's where all her children and her grandchildren are. Am I going to really be left alone? And so my philosophy of life is, if that's what she wants to do, that's what I want her to do. Because I don't want anybody living with me that doesn't want to be here. That's worse. That would be worse. So then I took a deep breath and said, right, so whatever happens is what is going to happen. Those are the facts. And actually, I read at some point in my life, I read the Course in Miracles, and they gave you a little card to carry with you. 365 days, you could carry a little card with you that was optimistic, or, you know, gave a new perspective on everything. And my little card that I carried for ages was, I have no defense against the facts. The truth. I have no defense against the truth. Whatever is, that's how it is. Now deal with it. Which left it into my responsibility to deal with whatever happens in life. It's my response is my responsibility. I can't help what happens in life. That's what happens. My response to it, that's my responsibility. But anyway, So that's how I felt about loneliness. Anybody else would like to go? Or as we've got half an hour left, I'm just thinking, what do we want society, what do we want to happen? What do we envisage? What do we want to do? Here we are, we're AWOC, where we are a campaigning group of people who feel that society is not listening to our voices. So now, what do we want to do about it? Okay, David.
Well, I've written down one or two things. I don't.
Oh, David, hang on a second. Can we just welcome in? Can we just welcome it? What is the name of this person who has just joined?
This is Zachary.
Zachary.
He's a Tibetan Terrier. He thinks he hasn't had enough attention from me recently.
Now
that's
the solution to
loneliness, because that is unconditional love.
Completely. And I've taken him, rehomed him. And I know what David said about, yes, I have to get up and feed him, but I can arrange with people to stay and look after him. If when I was in hospital, neighbours have helped me and I pay for them. It's worth making the effort, I think, for me anyway, to have a pet, because he listens to all sorts of rubbish, don't you? And he does his best to talk English. But he's like, that's enough. You haven't talked to me for an hour. He'll be all right now. I'll just give him a cuddle.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
He's posing for the camera, isn't he?
Now, Zachary, so it's something to it's somebody to cuddle. It's somebody to greet you. It's somebody to cuddle. It's somebody to look you in the eye and say you're there.
And it doesn't
And
matter.
he knows the routines. 11 o'clock, I have a cup of coffee and he's there. Like I have my meatball now with my pill. He knows. He's to me, it makes a world of difference.
There for you, always there for you.
And much better than a husband, was my experience anyway.
Yes.
Try both. You're much better, aren't you? He's 8, so he's one of us as well, aging without children.
So what are his views?
Yes, what are your views, eh? No, he just says he's got me well trained.
He's got you well trained.
He's got me well trained, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Okay, David, we will now actually okay, right.
Well, thank you for I just wanted to thank Zachary because because at the start I couldn't read my writing, so it gave me a chance to have a look at it. Anyway, I've written down, there was help throughout the pandemic, but it shouldn't be just individuals sort of helping one another. There should be, say, more governmental, more public support, considering the pressures on life now, especially the aftermath, especially the aftermath of the pandemic, the cost of living crisis, and other concerns such as climate change, fear of the future, that are impacting on people's lives. Every now and then the media brings up the subject of loneliness. There was a TV documentary about it a couple of years ago, but it's just sort of pushed aside. It's sort of this impression that we're all together. We must get on, and more importantly, we must make money. But in an unstable world situation like this, then it'll just ultimately impacting on people, and we do need some sort of support network, a nationally recognized support network, properly funded, properly resourced, that can that can help people and provide this. I mean, it's probably utopian and a bit naive, but that's one thing I can think of. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, what am I doing? Removing the pin there. And Charlotte.
Yeah, I entirely agree with David, actually, just to say that, because loneliness, I think, can be an actual killer of people, partly for depression, partly for their emotional state really affecting their physical state as well. And I do agree with David that it needs to be highlighted, and it's good to have these programs because we need to do some things about that to help people. Some charities look after this. I mean, the Silver Line, for instance, is pretty good, I think. They're there for people who are lonely and need to talk to somebody. But I think it needs more of a nationwide thing, because there are local initiatives, you know, like Good Gym and Good Neighbors and schemes at the university, etc. But none of that is really coordinated, and I think it is really a massive problem of loneliness. That's all I've got to say. I'll have to go very soon, actually.
Okay, Charlotte, thank you. Okay, Yvonne.
Yeah, I'd like to see awareness raised, not just with authorities and support services, but just generally people, family, friends. I don't think they're really aware of, you know, when they've all got children and big families, I really don't think they're aware of how life can be as an AWOC, both practically and emotionally. And I'd just like to see that general awareness raised, but I don't know how that is something we could do. Thank you.
I would absolutely endorse that, because I think that until it's on the agenda, until being an AWOC is on the agenda of every single organization dealing with older people, we're not going to get a wholesale change in society's attitudes to it. So we need every little bit we can do about spreading the word and talking about APOC and sharing what it really means, the better. Penny.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there ought to be much more awareness raising about being AWOC and the number of AWOCs. What's interesting, I've found, is that as you start to raise it locally, people do tend to go, oh, yes, I do know loads of people in that situation, but I didn't have a label. And because I didn't have a label, I didn't know I knew, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
And the label is really useful in that respect. But specifically in relation to loneliness, there is, at least on paper, quite a lot going on. So did you know there is an organization called the Campaign to End Loneliness, which is national?
Yes.
I think it came out of something Joe Cox did.
Yeah.
There is a minister for loneliness in the government who appears to be Stuart Andrew. What's the name I know? Stuart Andrew. So it's part of health. It's part of culture, media, and sport. And it used to be Tracy Crouch before she resigned as a minister. There is an all-party parliamentary group on tackling loneliness and connected communities. And the government earlier this year published their 4th annual report on tackling loneliness. So, you know, there is something going on. I mean, I think still some of what comes out from that is one of the things that always drives me bonkers is one of the national older people's charities, who shall be nameless, each year runs a campaign where they go, loads of people are going to be lonely at Christmas, give us some money. At the same time that the local autonomous instances of the same organization shut down all their face-to-face services and start again in the new year, or most of them do. So I mean, that's one thing. The other thing that I find problematic is the number of loneliness projects which are about providing someone who will give you a telephone call, who will phone you once a week for an hour, as though that's really a solution to loneliness, you know? I mean, it seems to me it's so little that it's difficult to see that it is. And also quite often the people in that situation, for all sorts of safeguarding reasons, all they're allowed to do is phone you for an hour. They aren't allowed to meet you in a coffee shop, or let alone have any contact with you outside it, or potentially even tell you their surname. I mean, I may be wrong about this, but potentially even tell you their surname or where they live. You know, it's because the whole safeguarding thing actually gets in the way of volunteers providing help and support. But anyway, but some things are going on. It's just that there's an awful lot more that could be done. And I think the thing that's amazing about AWOC is that it's about mutual aid, peer support, information, and sort of tackling this together, rather than saying someone should do something for us, or rather than predominantly saying people should do something for us. And it's, what tends to be known as a strengths-based approach, i.e. a focus on what we can do rather than what we can't do.
Yeah.
But different people have different preferences. I totally accept that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it's amazing, but all these reports, I mean, what effect have they? What effect have
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to read the Tackling Loneliness annual report, which will hopefully tell me what effect they've had.
Oh, dear.
I mean, I think, for example, one thing there is out there is there's an awful lot of social prescribing services. So services which will meet with you sort of one-to-one and try and connect you with things that you might do. Because one of the things that I understand the statistics say is that quite a large amount of GP surgery time is taken up with people who are basically going to their doctor because they're lonely, rather than because they really need to see a doctor, that often. So, they have worked out that tackling loneliness could save money for the NHS.
Yes. And actually, following up on that social prescribing idea, the local area coordinators in York have been very helpful to a lot of our AWOCs.
Yeah.
And this is, you've got one person attached to the council who is given an area to look after. And so anybody who is feeling that they are cut off or in need of services or signposting or whatever, and we've had local area coordinators going in to help people with the shambles of paperwork in their house, or the fact that dementia is setting in, to be able to support them, to head them in the right direction and get people to come in and be supportive.
Only unfortunately in Kent, we have up until now had a network of what are called community wardens that do a sort of combination of social prescribing and public safety work. And a consultation has just closed on cutting them back dramatically in order to save £1 million for the county council, £1 million a year in running costs. And after that, they're going to work out they've worked out how little they can afford to spend. But it's only after that that they're going to work out where to put people, depending on what other people are doing. They aren't looking first at what else is out there. And therefore, where is it good value to have a community warden and where is it not? As far as I can see, there may be more work going on behind the scenes, but it looks that way. It looks as though it's cut first, look at impact later.
So that's got to stop. That's what we need, is to stop the social services being cut, because
But part of the problem with community wardens is they're not seen as social services, I think. I think they're probably part of a different department, and that's probably part of the problem.
So
but
we need holistic thinking about this.
yeah, but there's, yes, and some of that is happening between the NHS and social care now, at last, to be fair. But we live in an environment in which a lot of local authorities seem to be close to going bust.
Well, we shouldn't be spending money
You know,
on,
and
don't
not
get me
just,
started
and not
on
only
nuclear
ones
power.
that
We don't get
would
started
be
on it.
regarded as having been profligate. We're talking about local authorities that have been sort of mainstream conservative since forever, you know.
Right, so we just need a change of government, and then
No,
we need more
immediately
money. I think you may not have heard, Sue, all sorts of parties talking about not putting up taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we will stop nattering and we'll now hear from David.
Right. Well, just going by what you were saying, Penny. I mean, I was a befriender for many years for a woman who used to live near me, and she was frail, housebound, and almost blind. And yes, she had a live-in care, and probably she impacted. The loneliness did impact on her, but I used to visit her. I used to visit her once a week. Stay for about 2 hours, and then I'd also phone her on Saturdays. And her niece said after she died that she always looked forward to my calls and visits. So even if it's something small like that, if it does it gives them a bit of a lift, something to look forward to, then it does help. And also, I've also done shopping for other elderly people who've been on their own, and friendships have developed from them. So that's something beneficial for them. And then also, I'm sorry if I keep coming back to the media, but I think they have a responsibility in sort of highlighting the problem or the danger of loneliness come depression, because it does impact on people. I mean, it did impact on me, because I ended up feeling suicidal. I felt I had no future, and that everything I'd done in the past had all been for nothing. But as we all know, the media only concentrate on say sensational items, and there would need to be a lot of not just work from our side. I mean, there's plenty of work going on there, but work from the media to highlight this issue, and work from politicians, not just endless reports and endless words. That's why, if there's sort of no national loneliness support system, then it all comes down to individuals taking matters to their own hands, setting up the equivalent of cooperatives. Anyway, that's how I see it. Thank you.
Yes, sorry, David, I wasn't trying to belittle befriending.
Well,
oh
yeah, but I mean, it's the old story, isn't it? Everything being tarred with the same brush. And if you remember, a few years ago, the media were coming down heavily on the charities, saying that they were incompetent, they were corrupt. The same charities that they were praising when the pandemic came along. Sorry if that sounds a bit cynical.
Let's not get distracted. Except, can I just say now, while I'm at it, that we could, David, I bumped into Rachel Maskell, RMP for York, and she said she was willing to come and talk to AWOC York, and was willing to take on board what we were all about, and etc. And I was just thinking, if we could actually just book into her surgery and descend a group of AWOCs could descend upon Rachel in her surgery one Friday or something like that. And she could also come and talk to AWOC and she could hear from all around the country what's going on, so that when she gets back into Parliament, she's got some ammunition to actually stand up and say to the country, to Parliament, this is what's going on. Would that be helpful? Would that be a good thing to do?
It would certainly be interesting. It would certainly be interesting. Yes. Anyway, I'm going to shut up because Rose wants has.
I've said so little. No, but it's just something I always focus on is it's important to remind myself as an older person what we've got to contribute, and also so that you're not sort of in a position of being a victim, which can happen. I know that some people have exceptionally difficult circumstances, but if you do remind yourself from time to time all that you can do, and then also I think probably that comes across to other people as more attractive, because, you know, to be honest, I mean, I visit people who are even older than me, and I do it with pleasure because they've got so much to tell me about, you know, their childhood. So that's important, to keep reminding yourself, yes, I've still got a lot to contribute.
Quite right. That's right. Yep. Yes, pat yourself on the back because you're a human being, you're unique. There's nobody like you in this blooming universe, so get on with it. Right. Okay. And I notice a cat there.
Yes, this is Lucy. My son is crazy about cats, and I've become crazy about Lucy.
And off she goes.
But they're not like dogs. She sort of only wants to be touched when she feels like it.
That's right. That's why a dog is different.
And my dog's talking now, though.
Yeah, it's funny how he started talking when the cat appeared.
I've heard the quotation. They say, dogs have families, cats have staff.
Oh dear. But anyway, okay, here's one more thought for the day. A male actor, age 34, is an actor, age 34. Questioner: what scares you about getting older? Answer: being alone and other people getting busier with their families and their lives, and yet leaving me feeling alone. And that's the point, is that you've got all this world going on around you, like, you know, people, things, cows, birds, everything. I mean, life is carrying on with great gusto, right, left and center. And there you are, feeling cut off from it somehow. You're feeling cut off from it. So then to raise your voice and say, here I am, and can make connections, is that what it's all about? Connections. Rodney,
I don't know. I mean, you know, it's often an illusion that everybody else is getting on with things. Because a lot of people, when you listen to their stories, every time that somebody starts telling me more openly about themselves, you find out that most people have got a lot of sorrows and anxieties. So this idea, you know, that everybody else is living life to the full, etc., it's an illusion, and that can make you feel lonely and a failure. Whereas we're all just struggling on, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're all just getting on with it. Okay. Okay.
If anybody is up in York or coming or thinking of coming to York, please get in touch with us, okay? We'll meet up and have a coffee or whatever. So please consider that.
Yes, the door is open.
Door is open.
Just a long way from here.
Yes, yeah. But you never know.
You might want
No,
a
thank
holiday
you.
in York.
Yeah.
Have a holiday in York.
So the two GovUK website links are about one about sort of what the government says it's doing to tackle loneliness. The second one is a report looking at what works to tackle loneliness. A report that was produced a little while ago, you know, in the last few weeks. But the third one is the one that I wanted to highlight. And I thought of that when we started talking about visiting York, because for those who are involved with U3A, next year, U3A are running a festival for a few days at the University of York. In fact, I've been meaning to say to you, Sue and Anne, that I think they're after people to run workshops and so on. And if you are at all involved with U3A, you might like to look at whether whether AWOC York could volunteer to do something there. But more generally, if people are contemplating a trip to York, that may be one thing that's interesting to consider doing during it.
Or the 50 plus festival, York 50 plus festival. Yes, but Penny's talking about next year.
Oh, next year.
And the next year, this one's sort of spring, summer or something like that next year.
Good, 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 good.
But yeah, York sort of seemed to be an amazing place to be growing older. You know, sort of, you know, whereas in Kent, we haven't even got a single local authority in Kent that's signed up to the UK network of age-friendly communities, which is one of my many moans about Kent.
Well, we should look forward to your success, Penny, in making
the group success, please. Yes.
The group success in making it age-friendly in East Kent.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Shall we gently call it to a close there?
Thank you very much for coming. That's great.
I think it's been excellent.
Thank you for organising it.
Thank you.
Sharing. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Excellent sharing. So, all right. So, hearts and flowers to everybody. There's my little thing. It's sparkling. My little heart is sparkling there. Have you got your reactions or not? Okay. So, okay. Oh,
Thank you.
Yay.
Bye.
And everybody has our email address and phone number and everything. Okay, bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.